Now that you know what a collection is in OCL, let's talk about how these collections work. The key to a collection is its references. References are like instructions for how OCL will add resources to your collection. They can point to concepts or to mappings, and a reference can tell OCL to pull in just one concept or multiple concepts. Let's look at our examples on the right. The first reference here points just to one CL concept. We didn't specify a version in this reference, so we will get that concept from its latest source version. The second reference, however, doesn't specify a particular concept, so we're going to gather all concepts from this source. The last reference does a similar thing, but it will pull in mappings instead of concepts, and we've specified that we want mappings from a specific version of the source.
Now, let's talk about some more advanced features with references. You may not need to use these in your own collections, but it helps to know that they exist. First, let's look at static versus dynamic references. Static references point to a specific version of a concept or a mapping, and as a result, static reference results don't change over time. So if you point to a CL concept from a specific release, for example, the results of that collection will always stay the same. However, when you use a dynamic reference, that points to the latest version of a concept or mapping. The results of dynamic references might change over time in your collection. So if your collection points to the latest version of the CL concept in its reference, then that concept might be updated with new CL releases. Overall, static and dynamic references come very much in handy when you want to control whether or not concepts or mappings inherit new changes over time. By default, a reference to an individual concept or mapping points to the latest version, and that's a dynamic reference. There's also include and exclude references. Include references are the default, and they tell OCL to include the resulting concepts mappings in the collection. An exclude reference, on the other hand, tells OCL not to include those concepts or mappings. These can come in handy when you want to get all the concepts from a source except for maybe one or two. Keep in mind, include references are always evaluated first, and then exclude references are evaluated. For cascade references, these are a special type of reference that will not only get a concept, but it can also get that concept's mappings and even the mapping target concepts if you want. These can be really useful when you want to add a grouping concept, such as a concept set or a question concept with answers. You can select the single concept, and then you can get all of its answers along with it in your collection.
Let's jump back over to OCL again for our example smoking status collection. There are already concepts and mappings, but how did they get here? Through references, of course. Here are the references that make up this collection. Remember, these references are the instructions on what concepts and mappings should go in this collection. First, we've got some references to individual CL concepts plus individual CL mappings. You can see those both here. Note that these are static references because they point to a specific version of the concept. That's what these extra characters are after the concept or mapping ID. They're a version ID to say that this is a static reference. We want to keep this version of the concept or the mapping. We don't want any updates to that concept or mapping. I also have a cascade reference in here. As you can see, we're pointing to one single concept, but it's resulting in 10 concepts and 9 mappings with it, because we told OCL to pull over not just the smoking status concept, but also pull over its mappings and the target concepts of those mappings. I also have a couple of expressions here to say I want all my concepts and all my mappings from my CL example OCL source. So OCL knows to just pull in all the concepts and all the mappings from that source. Finally, we have an exclude reference down here, and you can see that with a red exclude here. This is one mapping in particular that I did not want to show up in our collection, so I added it as an exclude reference.